Some stories don't belong online. They don't belong in courtrooms. They don't even belong in whispers. But I opened a folder that should have stayed locked forever. And now I can't sleep without seeing those faces. I was never supposed to touch it. The laptop wasn't in evidence. It wasn't even listed in the raid inventory. Homeland Security had hit Diddy's mansion months earlier. Drones in the air, armored agents tearing through the gates, pulling people out like it was a cartel compound. The news ran with the money and drug speculation, but what I had in my hands wasn't either of those things. It was silver, heavy, and dented at the hinge. The Apple logo was scratched out with a razor. No stickers, no markings, just one faint smudge on the lid, like a fingerprint someone had tried to wipe but couldn't. I got it through a contact who'd been cleaning out non-essential storage from a seized property. They said it was junk and tossed it into a clearance box for auction. They didn't know the power button still worked. When I turned it on, there was no password prompt, just a black screen with a single folder in the center. The name was all caps. 2 words. Blacklist. No music, no background wallpaper, nothing else on the desktop. I clicked once, half expecting it to be empty. It wasn't. Inside were 36 files. Each had a name, a date, and a location. The first one read, Quincy 6th Door, March 1st, 2024. The second, Paisley Park, Room 19, 2015. The rest were like that. Celebrity names I recognized instantly. Some dead, some still alive, some I'd only ever seen smiling on magazine covers. And the dates went back decades. I clicked the first file and the screen went black again. Not a video player, not audio, just black. Then an image flickered into view. It was a still frame from a camera looking down into what looked like a concrete tunnel. I didn't know it then, but that was the start of the worst week of my life. The first video opened without sound. Just a narrow, spiraling staircase shot from a head-mounted camera. The steps were metal, slick, glistening like they'd been wiped down. Whoever was filming descended slowly, and the lighting shifted from warm yellow to the sickly white glow of fluorescent strips. At the bottom, the camera panned left, then right. The space was a hallway, raw concrete, drainage grates every few feet, steel mesh on the walls like something you'd see in a bioweapons lab. Then the view stopped in front of a massive slab of metal. No handle, no hinges. Just a biometric scanner set into the wall. A green light blinked twice. The camera tilted down to a handheld device, some kind of pulse scanner, and as it swept across the wall, little pings lit up on the display. Not 1, not 2, 6. 6 sealed chambers lined up side by side. The file's timestamp matched the folder name, March 14th, 2024. And the file name, Quincy 6th Door, made sense only when the video lingered on the last chamber. Unlike the others, its signal flickered. For a moment, the footage glitched. The screen showed static. Then the inside of the room, empty except for a single chair under a spotlight. Then a voice, not from the person filming, not from anywhere I could place, whispered, "They used this one." The screen went black. I sat there staring, my stomach tightening. Quincy was a name I'd seen before, not in headlines, but in buried lawsuits, whispered in comment threads that vanished hours later. If this was real, if this was unedited, the 6th door was more than just a room. It was a stage. The second file, Paisley Park Room, 19/2/2015. Should have been another tunnel clip, but instead it opened on a dimly lit control room. 10 monitors glowed blue in the darkness, each showing different camera angles from a mansion I recognized immediately. Paisley Park, Prince's home. In the center of the frame, Prince sat cross-legged, sipping tea, his gaze locked on the screens. On one of them, I saw younger Diddy walking down a velvet-lined hallway. The footage shifted between angles, doorways, staircases, a ballroom draped in gold. Then it zoomed in on a smaller space. A round room with no windows, just a circular rug and an old ceiling fan. The door to this room was labeled only as Room 19. I watched as guests, faces I'd seen on talk shows and blockbuster movies, even behind pulpits, were quietly escorted inside. No security, no phones, no noise. The way they moved was deliberate, like they'd done this before. Then Diddy appeared on screen, carrying a plastic bin filled with bottles. He set it down, unscrewed one, and poured thick, golden liquid into his palms. The angle changed again, showing the guests forming a circle around a man I now recognized as a famous preacher. The oil was rubbed across his skin, chest, shoulders, scalp, in slow, mechanical motions. A low hum rose, not from any speaker, but from their throats. I paused the video and replayed the sound several times. It wasn't just a chant. Underneath, almost imperceptible, there was another tone, deeper, wetter, like something alive breathing through a pipe. I wanted to stop there. I should have stopped there, but the next file was already opening on its own. The third file was labeled simply, Sub-Level Ballroom. The video began with a shaky descent down another spiral staircase, the camera wearer breathing hard, their flashlight beam cutting through dust. At the bottom, the concrete opened into a space so impossible it made my skin crawl. It was a ballroom. 5 stories beneath ground level, lit by chandeliers that swayed slightly though there was no breeze. Velvet curtains lined the far walls. Marble statues stood in each corner, faceless and slick like mannequins mid-dance. At the center sat a grand piano under a single spotlight, its surface so polished it reflected the light like water. Whoever was filming walked slowly between rows of chairs, all arranged in a semicircle facing the piano. Every seat was empty, but there wasn't a speck of dust anywhere. Then the camera panned, and I saw them. Mirrors. 12 of them, each bolted into the walls, each one vibrating ever so slightly, like they were holding something back. In one mirror, a reflection didn't match. Someone taller, wearing a white mask, stood just over the shoulder of the cameraman. But when the view whipped around, there was no one there. The camera moved again, this time into a hallway carved from rough stone. The air seemed heavier here, and the footage caught flashes of paintings on the walls, faces without eyes, mouths open in endless screams. Under each face, a name was written in dripping black paint. Some names were familiar, some were famous, some were carved fresh. The feed lingered on the last one. A name carved so recently the edges still glistened. It wasn't a celebrity. It was just one word. You. The camera stumbled back, catching its own reflection in a mirror at the end of the hall. But the mirror didn't reflect. It pulsed, black and glossy like obsidian. Then a voice, not recorded in the room, but inside the mic itself, whispered, "They danced for him once. You will too." The footage ended abruptly, replaced by a text overlay that simply read, "Archived by order of MH." I didn't know who MH was, but I knew now. These weren't random clips. They were collected, labeled, stored, and someone had ordered them kept. I thought I'd seen the worst, until I opened the fourth file. It was back to room 19. Different date, different crowd. The guests formed the same circle as before, oil slicking their skin, but this time the hum was stronger, louder. It vibrated through the laptop speakers, making the desk tremble. Halfway through, I realized the hum wasn't coming from the people. It was coming from somewhere else, under the floor, through the walls, as if the building itself was alive. The preacher collapsed. A woman fell beside him, her mouth open, oil pouring in. Another guest leaned down, whispering something that made her eyes roll back. The camera zoomed in on the preacher's face. He was screaming, but no sound came out. Only the hum. And under the hum, so faint I almost missed it, was something like speech. Not in English, not in any language I knew, but I felt it in my teeth, in my bones. The feed cut to black for 10 seconds, then returned. The guests were gone. The room was empty except for the preacher, kneeling, shaking, his skin glistening. The file ended with a static frame of a mirror in the corner of the room. In the reflection, something moved. I'd been assuming these files were Diddy's private trophies. Leverage on powerful people, stored away for the day he needed to ruin someone. But halfway through the folder, that theory started to fall apart. One video had no celebrities, no rituals, no tunnels, just a dimly lit room lined with shelves, every inch stacked with hard drives, camcorders, and labeled tapes. A single desk sat in the center. Behind it, a man's silhouette, head bent over a monitor, cigarette smoke curling into the darkness. The label on the video read, Archivist Log 7. The camera stayed fixed as the man spoke, his voice low, deliberate, and British. If you're watching this, I'm either dead or you've been invited in. This collection is not for him. It's not for them. It's for me. Every frame is proof. Proof that what they're doing is older than their money, older than their names. Proof that the rooms were built to hold something in, and that something is almost free. He leaned back, revealing part of his face, just enough to recognize the eyes. I didn't want to believe it, but they matched a missing investigative journalist who'd vanished in 2018 after announcing he was about to break the biggest story of his career. His gaze locked on the lens. If you have access to the blacklist, you're already marked. Don't think deleting it will save you. The ones who see must perform, and the door will remember your name. The feed ended with him reaching over to shut the camera off, but for a split second before it cut, the reflection in his monitor showed something standing behind him. A tall figure, faceless, wearing a white mask. Scrolling further, I found a file with no name, just a date, 2016-April-21st. When I clicked it, my stomach dropped. The date was the day Prince died. The footage was grainy, shot from a fixed camera in a narrow hallway, the kind used in service areas. Prince walked past, alone, carrying a locked metal case. He disappeared into a room, and 30 seconds later, 2 men in dark suits followed. The camera didn't have audio, but it didn't need it. 3 minutes later, only the men came out. The case was gone. The video glitched, static lines tearing across the image. And then, without warning, the view switched to a completely different location. A basement room, empty except for a single mirror in the corner. Prince's reflection was in it, staring straight ahead. He wasn't moving. His lips were parted slightly, like he was about to speak. Then, almost imperceptibly, they curled into a smile. The file ended there. I didn't move for a long time, because if the black list was an archive of what I thought it was, then this wasn't just Diddy's laptop. It was a map of every person who'd ever been inside those rooms. Every performance, every disappearance. And I had just seen enough to know I was next. I told myself I'd copy the folder, send it to 3 different journalists, and wipe the laptop clean. That plan lasted less than 2 minutes. The moment I dragged the blacklist folder onto my external drive, the laptop screen froze. Not with a beach ball or an error code, just the video from the ballroom looping silently. The mirrors along the wall vibrated in perfect sync with the faint, wet hum I'd only ever heard in the recordings. Except this time, it wasn't coming from the speakers. It was coming from my apartment. The air felt heavier. My coffee mug on the desk began to rattle, ever so slightly. I yanked out my earbuds, spun around. Nothing. But the hum didn't stop. It was in the walls, in the floor, in my chest cavity. The laptop ejected the external drive on its own, the screen flashing a single message. Transfer denied. You are already archived. My stomach twisted. I opened the folder again. Every file name was gone. In their place was just one. Live feed. I clicked it before I could think. The video showed my apartment, my desk, the back of my head. The feed zoomed slowly, as if someone behind the camera was walking toward me. My skin went cold. The camera stopped, close enough that my hair filled the frame. Then it tilted, catching my reflection in the dark screen of the powered-off TV across the room. And behind me, in the reflection, a white mask. I slammed the laptop shut, but the hum didn't stop. It followed me into the kitchen, into the bathroom, into every corner of the apartment. I tried to drown it out with music, but no matter what I played, the hum threaded through, perfectly in tune, like it was composing itself around the noise. 3 hours later, I opened the laptop again. The desktop was empty except for one new folder. PERFORM. Inside was a single file. No extension. The icon was a small black door. When I opened it, my webcam light clicked on. The screen filled with my own face, pale under the dim room light. A flat, toneless voice came through my speakers. You have seen. You will perform. I tried to close the lid, but my hands wouldn't move. The voice spoke again. Look behind you. I didn't want to. I knew what I'd see, but my head turned anyway. Slow, mechanical. The white mask was inches from mine. The next thing I remember is waking up on the floor. The laptop was gone. My phone was gone. The hum was gone, but the air still felt wrong, like a storm about to break. I checked the clock. 8 hours had passed. For weeks, I tried to pretend it was over. I changed the locks, got rid of every reflective surface in the apartment, slept with the lights on. But the hum still came back, not every night, not even every week. Just enough to let me know I hadn't escaped. The first time I heard it again, I was in a grocery store. It was faint, buried under the hum of the freezers, but I recognized it instantly. I dropped my basket and walked out without paying. A month later, I found the proof I'd been hoping not to find. It was buried in a dark web form I used to check for leaks, a grainy still frame, supposedly from a private collection of unreleased surveillance. The caption read, "Blacklist, active files." There were 12 thumbnails: the ballroom, room 19, the stone hallway, the obsidian mirror, and the last one, me. Not me at my desk, not me in my apartment. Me on a small raised platform, a spotlight pouring down on my shoulders. My arms slightly lifted, my lips just starting to curl into a smile. I don't remember being there. I don't remember the light. But the image was tagged with the date, 3 days from now. I shut the laptop, unplugged the router, and sat in the dark for hours, trying to convince myself it was fake, but deep down, I knew better. The blacklist wasn't just a record of the past. It was a schedule, and my name was on it. So if you're watching this, if this story is still online, it means they haven't called me yet. But they will. They always do. And when they do, I'll be standing on that platform under that light, smiling for an audience you'll never see. The hum has already started.